Hi, this is Corey Johnston, and today's lesson is going to be a continuation of a previous lesson from the 119th chapter in the book of Psalms. The range we most recently covered was verses 49 through 64. We're going to cover 65 through 80 today, and the way we've been dividing these is in 16 verses at a time. Now, the 119th Psalm is the longest single chapter in either testament. It's 176 verses. It is a massive acrostic maze, and an acrostic is a poetic device whereby the opening first letter of the opening word of every verse corresponds to the Hebrew alphabet in the order in which they come. So the first 8 verses are Aleph, the final 8 are Tau. That's the A to Z of the Hebrew alphabet. There are 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet. The vowels are categorically excluded. There's only consonants, but each of the 8 verses, now 8 by 22, gives us the sum equation of 176. And so the letters we most recently covered, verses 49 through 56, are the Hebrew letter of Zayin. Each opening letter of each opening word of each verse begins with that Hebrew letter, and 57 through 64 is Heth, and what we're going to cover in the actual lesson itself. 65 through 72 is Teth, and 73 through 80 are Yod. We're going to review what we already covered, beginning with verse 50. This is my comfort in my afflictions, for your word has given me life. So in the earlier verse, he asks Yahweh to remember his word, because the word is his source of comfort. No matter what circumstances or situations or negative outcomes are in his life, he always has that source of comfort, even in his affliction. And Christian joy is not dependent on circumstances. In all circumstances and situations which are unfavorable or negative, we can look above and beyond ourselves to the one who controls all circumstances and find comfort and relief and life in him. Verse 52, I remembered your judgments of old, Yahweh, and I comforted myself. So this theme, we read the word remember 2 times in the first, the Zayin portion, and we also read the word forget in the Heth. Now, the word remember appears 15 times in the book of Deuteronomy, which is the capstone of the law, and this psalm is a love ballad to the law. And we also read the word forget 14 times, but some things are worthy of remembering. We have to remember the failures and the warts and all of the characters in the Bible, lest we repeat the same mistakes. And we also must remember his judgments, and the way we do that is by reading. So reading leads to remembrance. We won't have a portable copy in front of us as we go out into the world, but if we have the memory of it, then we will have the source of comfort. There's that word again. Verse 54, your songs have been my song in the place of my sojournings. So no matter where he is, no matter where he goes, he always has a song on the tip of his tongue, and they are motivated and influenced and informed by, and the vocabulary is reflected by what is written in the laws. The laws are plural, so this is distinct from Torah. So the laws are the plurality of the Torah, which is the singular version of the same word. But he always has a cause to rejoice in his circumstances, even when his circumstances are less than favorable. Now we're going to review what we covered in the Heth section, beginning with verse 57. You are my portion, O Yahweh. I have promised to guard your words. So that word portion appears in the Levitical inheritance. Their inheritance and portion was to be Yahweh. They were to own no property, have no possessions, and have no material inheritance, but they were to live by Yahweh, through Yahweh, and for Yahweh. He was their portion. And to paraphrase the 20th century Methodist author A.W. Tozer, in declaring himself to be their portion, he made the Levites richer than any Rajas or princes anywhere in the earth. So whoever wrote this was in all likelihood a Levite and a priest, and it might have been Ezra. I'm personally partial to the possibility. I have sought your face with all my heart. Show me grace according to your word. So seek and you shall find, and knock and it shall be open, but it's seldom so simple as a one-time looking and a one-time knocking. You have to persist with diligence and endurance in order to find what you seek. Seeking his face is one thing, but finding it is quite another. And if you engage all your heart, now blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see Elohim. We read of in Matthew 5:8, and he wants to. The word is an act of grace. He does not have to provide us with an instruction manual, basic instructions before leaving Earth. Bible. That's an acronym. Verse 63, I am a companion of all who fear you and those guarding your orders. Principle of association suggests that evil people gravitate towards other sinners, whereas wise people gravitate towards people who possess the same characteristics as themselves. So if you are wicked, foolish, and depraved, you're going to keep the company and you're going to be comfortable around the company who share the same outlook and disposition. If you are the opposite disposition, wise, righteous, and true, then you will associate with positive influences, good examples, ones who will not steer you wrong or provide any negative outlet, excuse, or example for you to emulate. So show me your friends and I'll show you your future. Verse 64, O Yahweh, your kindness has filled the earth. Teach me your laws. Now the theme of his overflowing kindness, which subsumes all the earth, leads us into the main theme of Teth, verses 65 through 72 is the attribute of divine goodness. So the kindness is certainly derivative of his goodness. To be kind and good are not exactly identical, but they are certainly synonymous. And the psalmist retains the attitude and outlook of a servant and a student. So he probably, in all likelihood, taught the Torah to others, but he remained a student, and his teacher was Yahweh, the best one. Verse 65, lesson itself, 119th Psalm. You have done good to your servant, according to your words. Good is an attribute. An attribute is distinct from a characteristic. Now, if we are good in character, that is our characteristic, but an attribute is something that can be attributed to divinity. It is more than a mere characteristic. Everything he is, everything he does, emanates from his goodness, and in fact, it would have been considered blasphemous for ancient Jews to ascribe or claim goodness to any human being. This much is indicated in the Savior's dialogue with the rich young ruler who approached him saying, Good teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life? And he asked, Why do you call me good? So the prevailing custom was any claim or attribution of goodness to any human would have been blasphemous, because strictly speaking, goodness belongs to and emanates from Yahweh, who alone is intrinsically good. But once more, he has the attitude and outlook of a servant. He probably served in a leadership capacity, but in the church and also in the synagogue, the leaders are servants. That's the paradox that is modeled and embodied by the Savior himself, servant leaders. And it's according to his word. So a positive element of the word is the promises. There are fantastic promises that to claim, and your life's not going to be easier or immediately gratifying, but it will be better and it will be good, because when you surrender to the one who is good, he can impart his goodness on your behalf. Teach me good sense and knowledge, for I trusted in your commands. Once more, he has the attitude of a student. He teaches other humans, but he is taught of Yahweh, and he is taught by the active contemplation and study of his words, his commandments. There are eight words we read, depending on the translation, in each of these stanzas. None of them have less than 6, and a few of them have 8. These are laws, plural. We already explained that. Statutes, precepts, commands, commandments, same thing. Ordinances, decrees, and word. And the one he uses here is commandments. These are an aspect of the Torah. The Torah consists of 613 commandments. There are 365 negatives, thou shalt nots, and 248 positives, thou shalts. Before I was afflicted, I myself was going astray, but now I have guarded your word. The psalmist, by his own admission, was not perfect. He had wandering experience. He likened human nature to that of a sheep in the 176th and closing verse. So sheep are wandering and wayward and independent by nature. They do not. Even though they are domesticated beasts, they are still inclined to wander, and humanity is much in the same way. We have alienated ourselves through our active, deliberate decision to go our own way and do our own thing. But if we are guarded and grounded in the Word, we will not go astray. We will walk the path that is upright, true. We will maintain our integrity on the straight and narrow, which leads unto salvation. But affliction is no excuse to go astray, and the presence of affliction separates the wise from the weak. The fair-weather Christian throws in the towel as soon as the persecution comes their way, but the wise one sticks with it and endures past the affliction, which is only temporary, especially in the eternal scheme of things, and maintains his integrity. But the psalmist, he was he had prior failings. He was human, but he was not someone who conveys the impression of one who is leading others astray or gone astray himself. This was a youthful dalliance, and as he matured, he grew grounded and guarded his word. You are good and do good. Teach me your laws. His laws are a reflection of his goodness. They are an expression and a concrete certainty that he is good. Now, what he commands us is often difficult, but that's only because he wants the very best for us. So he does ask a lot. He does impose exalted standards, which call for the very best in us, but they also bring out the best in us. And we have to be moldable, pliable, and receptive to his teachings. We have to not only read, but listen and learn and live. We have to go out there in the real world and apply these laws of principle into practice, and that cannot be done apart from his instruction. So we have to pray for an encounter every time you read the scriptures. If you want to hear the voice of divinity, that's something you're going to have to pray for. If you pray for it frequently and fervently enough, you may just hear him. The proud have forged a lie against me. With all heart I observe your orders. The proud, he earlier mentioned something, I think, in the most recent range about the prideful, the 51st verse. The proud have utterly scorned me. I do not turn aside from your Torah. So the proud were actively aligned against him. They were conspiring to bring about his downfall. They resorted to a whispering campaign, a character assassination attempt, just a libelous, we don't know what the lie against him was, but it was probably something unsubstantiated and unverified. But rumor and hearsay does have a powerful swaying amongst the weak of mind, and because they are proud, they see his rigorous adherence to the law as a threat to them, because the law exposes the sin of pride. But with all his hearts, with all his faculties and all his capacities, it's an all or nothing measure. With all his heart, not just some of it, not just part of it, but with all his hearts, he observes his orders. And you have to do something wholeheartedly or not at all. There's no room for neutrality or half-hearted Christianity. Their heart has become like fat without feeling. I have delighted in your Torah. So he's comparing and contrasting himself to his enemies. Their heart is not receptive, not pliable. Their heart is a heart of stone, and his is a heart of life, to appropriate a prophecy in the book of Ezekiel. And their hearts are without feeling. Now, hard-heartedness is the consequence of having a prolonged deadening of the conscience. That's when you're not convicted, when nothing bothers you. That's when something wrong is there. So if you are being bothered by something you said or did, you should thank Yahweh, because that means his spirit is still working in your heart. The ministry of conviction is his, as we read of in John 16:8-11. But we can, if we delight in His law, His Torah, that means our hearts are inclined to it. We have a heart for it. We take it to heart. We learn it. We live it, and we love it. So the Torah, and more extensively the Bible, the Word, is the heart of God. So we should love it. The mind of God, so we should learn it, and the will of God, so we should live it. It was good for me that I was afflicted, that I might learn your laws. Discipline, pain, suffering, privation, these are effective educational instruments, so it is a good thing. He considers himself fortunate that he was suffering and persecuted, because that drew him closer. He clung all the more tightly onto the laws, which were his solace, security, and comfort. He earlier mentions in the range which comes before the range we're covering today. So affliction, persecution, and pain, whether sought or unsought, has personally taught me everything that I've known and learned about myself, my God, and life. The Torah of your mouth is better to me than thousands of gold and silver pieces. This is neither the first nor the last time that the psalmist contrast unfavorably the value of earthly treasures to the imperishable treasure of the law. So he has his priorities certainly in order. All the gold in the world, no matter how much silver, he would not trade it or exchange it for the satisfaction and delight and the treasure and the riches and the blessings that come from having the law, which emanates from his mouth. This is him speaking to us, so we needn't treat it trivially. We certainly shouldn't, and it is good for us. Gold and silver corrupts, not only physically, but also corrupts those who possess them, and the irony and the paradox is that those who end up amassing great possessions end up being possessed by the possessions they have. 73rd verse, this is the Hebrew letter of Yod from here to the 80th verse. Your hands have made me, informed me. Make me understand that I might learn your commands. The Elohim, or Yahweh's creative prowess, he also endows us with the capacity to be able to reason and to have spirituality, which is to access and contemplate his presence and contemplate his essence. So the same creator who gave us life also gave us brain power. He doesn't distribute his gifts evenly, but the psalmist yearns to desire to be made complete, to be made whole. So he has life, he has the body, he has the flesh, but it's the mind that is his chief concern. Make me understand that I might learn. He has the attitude of the student once more. This is omnipresent throughout the 119th Psalm. He learns, he yearns to learn from the law. Those who fear you see me and rejoice, for I have waited for your word. This reminds us of something we earlier read. I am a companion of all who fear you and of those guarding your orders. Verse 63, we already covered that one. But here, he's saying that the attraction is mutual between fearers and worshipers and disciples and devotees of the law. They gravitate towards him and he gravitates towards them. They see him and they rejoice and delight because they know they're in the presence of one who lives by the law and learns the law and teaches the law and embodies and embraces the law. And he's patient, to extract an advanced knowledge of the law demands endurance. It demands patience. There is nothing automatic about it. It's not a once-a-day hobby. It is an all-day, every day, and throughout the day study, which must saturate your days from the beginning and the end and everywhere in between. I know, O Yahweh, that your judgments are righteous, and in trustworthiness you have afflicted me. So the first thing that he claims to know is that his judgments are righteous. He is a righteous being, intrinsically so. Our righteousness is as filthy rags before him who is without blemish. This much is communicated in Isaiah 64, verse 5. So his judgments are a reflection and a manifestation and embodiment of his righteousness, his law, his justice system, his vengeance, and his him having mercy on those in wrath, on who he will have wrath, is always and only rooted in his own righteousness. And he considers it an act of love and an act of faith and a faithfulness that he would afflict him to bring him closer to him. He thanks, he is grateful that he has undergone and endured affliction and seen past it and drawn closer to him. So the natural man, when they are afflicted, they do not have the attitude of gratitude. They have the mindset of, why me, woe is me, poor me, I'm the only one in the world who knows what I'm going through. But having endured past the experience, we can finally gain some closure and perspective on what it all means and how it can make us better. Please let your kindness be for my comfort, according to your words to your servant. So that's the second word. We read the word kindness recently. We read it in the 64th verse. O Yahweh, your kindness has filled the earth. Teach me your laws. And comfort, that theme is earlier. This is my comfort in my afflictions, for your word has given me life. Verse 50. And also verse 52. I remembered your judgments of old, O Yahweh, and I comfort myself. So this theme of kindness and comfort once more repeats and rebounds and echoes. And his source of comfort is in the promises contained in the word, not specifically the word itself, but more specifically the promises contained in the word. They are a source of comfort, and they emanate from his kindness and his goodness and his benevolence. And the promises are made to his servants. They are not automatically guaranteed to any and all who read it, but those who read it, heed it, learn it, live it, and embrace it. Let your compassion come to me, that I might live, for your law, your Torah is my delight. So compassion is closely connected to kindness. It is an emanation of his goodness. He is compassionate. He is kind because he is good. And compassion is what motivated more than a few of the miracles of the Son. He looked on the crowd and he had compassion on them. And so the psalmist, compassion is something we all want to have, but something we're less inclined to give, but we all want it. And the psalmist certainly had compassion on other people, but he was dependent and reliant on divine compassion in order that life without that would not be a life worth living in his calculation, assessment, and estimation. And the Torah is once more his chief source of satisfaction and delight and pleasure and just everything good. Let the proud be put to shame, for with lies they perverted me. I study your orders. Once more, the proud are inducting in a whispering campaign. Verse 69, the proud have forged lies against me. With all heart I observe your order. So the same concepts are communicated. I study your orders with all my heart. I observe your orders. That word orders is once more repeated. And but the proud, they have a special vendetta, a personal vendetta against the psalmist, perhaps because of his fastidious and uncompromising and unvarying adherence to the law. We can imagine was the root at the persecution. So the fact that you are persecuted for righteous, a lot of people think it would be wrong to assume that you are being persecuted because you have done wrong when you are doing righteous. There is a fine line between people not liking you because you're a jerk and being persecuted for the faith. We just want to acknowledge and maintain an awareness of that distinction. Not exactly identical things. Let those who fear you turn to me, and let those who know your witness. So once more, he desires to be gathered in the company of fellow people who fear and worship the Almighty. This is his associations of choosing. These are the people he wants to be around with, the people he wants to be with, the people he wants to live with, the people he wants to learn from and to teach. And it takes one to know one, so you can always spot a spirit-saturated people when you yourself are abiding in the power and the presence of the Spirit. And the same principle to people who observe the law. Let my heart be perfected in your laws, so that I am not put to shame. Now, the law is legitimate, but it is also limited. It cannot perfect the human heart. All it can do is expose the sin and the consequent need for perfection. The act of perfection is solely the ministry of the Ruach Kadesh, who can transform the sinner with an outlook of repentance once their sin is exposed. And, the heart is the center of human volition, will, desires, and motivations, and also deepest passions. So our hearts are imperfect. The human heart is desperately wicked. It is deceitful. It is incomprehensible, Jeremiah 17:9. But it can be perfectible. We shouldn't let the failures and imperfections and shortcomings and inadequacies of our nature and character in our heart prevent us from seeking to be perfected. And then we will not be put to shame. We will not be proud, because pride is a sin, but we will not be ashamed. And that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much. I'm so glad you're here. Stay tuned until next time. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.